Hello everyone, welcome back. Today's video is the fourth episode in our series, Who is Jesus Christ? We'll be talking about why he was considered to be a temple in John chapter 2, verse 21. To begin, let's go a couple verses back and look at what Jesus said in verse 19. When talking to the Jews, he declared, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." Then the Jews, knowing the history of the temple's construction, replied that this temple was 46 years in building. And are you going to miraculously or magically destroy it and bring it back up in 3 days? And then John clarified in verse 21 that he meant the temple of his body. So how can a body exactly be a temple? Well, what is a temple? A temple is simply a building that would act as sort of a symbol for the relationship that humans have with the heavenly beings, the spirits. The Jewish temple in particular was significant to the Jews because it was the symbolic dwelling place of God. If you read Exodus chapter 25 verse 8, you see God telling Moses, "Let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them." It doesn't necessarily mean that God was actually inside the house. No, King Solomon, who constructed that, famous temple, said in 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 27 that God can't even dwell on the earth, not to talk of in a small, tiny little building, but it was sort of a symbol of that idea. God's desire to be among his people, to dwell among them. If you read Leviticus chapter 26 verses 12 to 13. So, as a result of God dwelling in the temple, that now becomes a place where people often go to for those spiritual connections. So, how does Jesus fit into that profile? Well, if you look at his first advent when he was a human being in Judea, you see that the Jews who were seeking God congregated around him because he was the means by which people could find their way back to God. If you read places like Luke chapter 7 verse 16, you see where the Jews who believed in God truly, they saw Jesus as the person who God has sent to represent him. And they believed that God had visited them by sending someone like that to represent him or be a symbol of his presence. This was established in Matthew chapter 3 verses 16 and 17 when God announced Jesus to the crowd and said, "This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased." And from after that point, people started to flock around him. And all of this makes sense because one of the names that Jesus Christ was given prophetically in the Bible was Emmanuel. If you read Malachi chapter 1 verse 23, and what does that name mean? God with us. So it kind of symbolizes the idea of God dwelling among his people through Jesus Christ. So that's kind of the first way of understanding that. And then the second way of understanding Jesus as being the temple is as a result of his sacrificial death, or what we may call the ransom sacrifice, as he spoke about in Matthew chapter 20, verse 28, we as Christians now have the opportunity to be purified by his blood. And what do I mean by that? Well, the Bible makes us know that Christ's death was actually what we call an atonement, which means that the sin that our ancestors Adam and Eve committed in Genesis chapter 3 verses 1 to 6 that was now passed on from generation to generation, Jesus Christ, who was a perfect soul, if you read 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 22, because he was guiltless, he didn't do anything worthy of death, his death now became an atonement for those of us who want to seek God and be saved. If you read John chapter 3 verse 16. So Jesus is the means by which we can receive that sanctification and purification. If you read Hebrews chapter 13 verse 12, wherefore Jesus also, that he might sanctify the people by his own blood, suffered without the gate. So this is one of the main kind of ideas as to why Jesus is the temple. Jesus is holy, and he is the means by which we can be sanctified before God, just as the temple was to the Israelites and Jews in those days. And the third kind of idea is that connection that the temple establishes between the people and God. Jesus Christ establishes the same connection. He in Judea was the means by which God was relating with the Jews at the time, and spiritually, Jesus Christ is now the means by which we can come to God. If you read Matthew chapter 11, verse 27, Jesus Christ said, "All things are delivered unto me of my Father, and no man knoweth the Son but the Father. Neither knoweth any man the Father, save the Son, and he to whomsoever the Son shall reveal him." What's more, he even said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me." So in essence, when John said in John chapter 2 verse 21 that Jesus spoke of the temple of his body, Jesus Christ is being described as a temple because of the significance that the temple had, how the temple established the relationship between us, God's creation, and God the Father. And Jesus Christ does the same thing. And that was why in Revelation chapter 21 verse 3, it was described how in the world to come, that relationship would be restored to perfection. God would be among us. And that is through his Son, Jesus Christ. So, if you enjoyed this video and learned something new today, I'd appreciate if you click the like button and also the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified when I come back with another video, click the notification bell. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon.